Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really getting into the escalating situation between India and Pakistan.
That's right. It follows that awful terrorist attack in Pahalgam back on April 20th.
Yeah, just terrible. 28 unarmed civilians killed. And, many of you listening are probably trying to get a quick, clear handle on what's happening.
Exactly. What's the fallout? What might India do next beyond what we've already seen?
And the bigger picture, too, right? Like, Pakistan's economy is in a rough state, and then there's China always in the background.
Absolutely. So our mission here is to unpack all that. We'll look at the immediate aftermath, India's possible responses.
And really dig into those wider implications. You mentioned Pakistan's economy, China's interests.
Yeah, we're drawing on, recent news analysis, commentary, that sort of thing.
Okay, let's start with the trigger itself. Pahalgam. 28 people killed, apparently asked about their religion first. Horrific.
Truly horrific. And the reaction in India was, immediate outrage.
Understandable outrage.
Yeah.
And a strong sense that Pakistan was behind it.
That's the prevailing perception, yes. But what's interesting is the time that's passed.
It's been, 11, 12 days now?
Right. And no direct military strike from India yet.
Even though PM Modi apparently gave the army a free hand.
Exactly. Which suggests they're being quite deliberate, maybe weighing options rather than just reacting instantly.
Okay, so no military action yet. But India hasn't just been sitting idly by, has it?
Not at all. They've made some pretty big moves diplomatically and economically.
Can you walk us through those? What have they actually done?
Well, first, suspending the Indus Water Treaty. That's huge.
Decades old, that treaty. Controls the river waters.
Precisely. Suspending it is a major signal, could really impact agriculture down the line for both sides, actually.
Yeah,
They've closed the borders, expelled Pakistani nationals, and maybe the most direct hit economically, a 100% import ban on Pakistani goods.
Wow, a complete ban. That's got to hurt, given Pakistan's situation.
Oh, undoubtedly. It adds significant pressure onto an already very shaky economy.
And it's not just actions, is it? The talk, the threats, they seem to be escalating too.
Very much so. We're hearing some pretty alarming rhetoric.
Like what?
Well, Pakistan making that threat about the Indus River. If water doesn't flow, Indian blood will.
That's incredibly inflammatory.
It is. And they've also repeated that claim that all their nuclear weapons are pointed at India.
Which they say periodically, but it feels different now.
It does. And meanwhile, in India, the public pressure for a strong, visible response is still really high.
So you've got these actions, these threats, all happening while Pakistan's economy is, tanking.
That's the crucial backdrop. The stock market there has crashed, over 8,000 points?
That's massive. How does this economic weakness factor into India's calculations?
It's absolutely central, I think. That kind of crash shows extreme financial fragility.
Right.
And it's not just a blip. History shows that kind of capital flight.
Yeah.
It can cause long-term damage that's hard to fix, even with aid.
So if things escalated to, say, a war,
it would almost certainly make things much, much worse for Pakistan economically. You'd likely see foreign investors pull out completely. The economy could just collapse.
A potential breaking point?
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Could they even withstand that kind of shock? It's a serious question.
Okay, let's bring China into this. Usually Pakistan's strongest backer. Are they stepping up this time?
Well, that's interesting. Some analysis suggests their support might be, let's say, more limited this time around.
Why would that be?
Couple of reasons, potentially. China's got its own economic pressures, partly from the trade issues with the U.S.
The trade war impact.
Yeah. And also, their trade with India itself has grown pretty important, so they might be wary of rocking the boat too much with New Delhi right now.
But there's a potential flash point, isn't there? Something that could get China more directly involved.
Yes. And that centers on Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, or POK.
What's the specific trigger there?
If India were to actually try and occupy POK militarily, that seems to be a potential red line for China.
And why is POK so critical for Beijing?
It comes down to CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor.
Can you just remind us quickly what CPEC is and why POK matters for it?
Sure. CPEC is this huge infrastructure project, billions of dollars. It's key to China's Belt and Road Initiative.
Okay.
It connects Gilgit-Baltistan, which is in POK, all the way down to Gwadar Port in Balochistan, giving China access to the Arabian Sea.
Ah, so it starts right there in the disputed territory.
Exactly. Think of it as China's direct land route to the sea, bypassing longer sea lanes. If India took control of POK, especially Gilgit-Baltistan,
It cuts off CPEC right at the source.
precisely, it blocks that vital artery, jeopardizing China's massive investment and their strategic access. That's why it's so sensitive for them.
Okay, that makes sense. So China's being cautious generally, but POK is a specific line they likely wouldn't want crossed because of CPEC.
That seems to be the calculation, yes.
Now, despite the public anger in India, some of the analysis we're looking at argues against a big military response right now, even if India felt it could win.
That's right. There's this argument that, war helps no one in the end. Even a victory could come at a huge cost for India.
What kind of costs are they talking about? Beyond the human tragedy, obviously.
Well, economic instability is a big one. War makes investors nervous, they pull money out, markets can crash.
The kind of thing Pakistan is experiencing now could happen in India, too.
It certainly could, yes. And they also point to history. Indira Gandhi won the 71 war but lost the 77 election. Vajpayee, after Kargil in 99, lost in 2004.
Interesting. So military victory doesn't always translate into political stability afterwards.
Apparently not always. The post-war reality can be politically destabilizing at home. It suggests a need for caution.
It really highlights the difficult balance, doesn't it? Need to hold Pakistan accountable for terrorism, but also protect India's own stability and avoid, a wider mess.
It's a classic strategic dilemma.
So if not immediate war, what other options, maybe more permanent solutions, are being floated in this analysis?
The sources mention three main long-term strategic ideas.
Okay, what's the first?
First is basically a full-court press, diplomatically, globally. Try to get all foreign funding aid, loans, everything cut off to Pakistan.
The aim being?
To trigger a kind of economic collapse that makes it impossible for them to fund or support terrorism, undermine their state capacity.
Okay, that's a major international play. What's the second idea?
Second, go beyond just suspending the Indus water treaty to canceling it outright, permanently.
And use the water for India instead.
Exactly. Fully utilize those river waters for India's own development, agriculture, water security. It would need massive infrastructure investment, though.
A huge undertaking. And the third option, it sounds pretty radical.
It is the most far-reaching, yes.
Okay.
The idea is to actively support independence movements inside Pakistan.
In places like Balochistan.
Yes. Balochistan is mentioned specifically along with Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Sindh. The idea draws a parallel with India's role in Bangladesh's creation in 1971.
Trying to break Pakistan up, essentially.
Yeah, that seems to be the underlying logic. Support groups like the Balak Liberation Army fracture the state and permanently reduce its ability to be a threat.
Wow. Those are definitely bold, potentially game-changing strategies. They really reflect a desire for something more final than just retaliation.
They absolutely do. It speaks to a deep frustration.
So, given all that, what's the overall feeling on the ground in India right now, according to these sources?
Well, the dominant sentiment, as portrayed in the analysis, is definitely still for strong action. People are angry. They want Pakistan hit hard for Pahalgam.
A desire for retribution.
Yes, a very strong one. But as we discussed, the analysis also cautions that the long-term costs of a war for India might actually be greater than for Pakistan, given how fragile Pakistan already is.
So the argument shifts towards needing a permanent treatment, as one source put it, rather than just hitting back immediately.
That seems to be the thrust of these alternative proposals, yes.
Yeah.
Moving beyond reactive strikes to something more systemic.
Okay, so let's try and pull this together. We started with the Pahalgam attack, the trigger.
Right. Then India's initial responses, the non-military ones, like the treaty suspension, the trade ban.
Then the escalating rhetoric, the threats flying back and forth.
And the crucial context, Pakistan's weak economy and China's complex role, especially regarding CPEC and POK.
We also looked at why immediate war might be cautioned against, despite the anger.
And explored these more long-term structural solutions being proposed, like cutting off funds or even supporting separatist movements.
It's a really complex mix of immediate crisis, economic vulnerabilities, geopolitics, and these potentially huge long-term strategic shifts.
Definitely multifaceted. It covers the immediate fallout, the pressures, the big players, and these alternative future paths India might be considering.
It's certainly given us, and hopefully you listening, a lot to think about regarding this incredibly tense situation. So maybe a final thought to leave you with.
Given how interconnected everything is in that region, economically, politically, ethically, what kind of unforeseen consequences, maybe ripple effects, we haven't even considered, could realistically spin out from any of these big permanent strategies aimed at fundamentally changing Pakistan, something to mull over beyond the immediate crisis. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.